Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Right at the outset, thank you ever so much to each one of you who subscribed to the channel and to those of you who've taken time out to watch this once again. I've had a large number of requests from students and teachers to explain A Thing of Beauty by John Keats to the children. I'm going to make an endeavor to try and explain this to you and make it simple for you so that you have no problems whatsoever in attempting the questions in the exam. John Keats, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is one of the most incredible poets of the Romantic era. He's written some amazing poetry, and unfortunately for English literature, we lost him at a very young age of just around 25 years. His poems include a large number of odes: the Ode to the Grecian Urn, the Ode to a Nightingale, Ode to Psyche. But the one which we are studying today is an extract from the poem Endymion, where the poem extracted is A thing of beauty is a joy forever. I would like to request each one of you to hang on to this thought which is on your screen right now. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness. And I want you to think of one moment, one person, anything at all that has made you smile. Is it making you smile now? This moment, this person will hold value for you for the rest of your lives. It doesn't matter whether you're a teenager, whether you're in your 20s, in your 40s, or even older. That moment, that person is going to have the same value for you at your stage of life as it did at the point of occurrence. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. It will never fade into nothingness. It will hold the same value for you as it did on that particular day. Hang on to this thought, and I'm sure the poem is going to be a cakewalk for you to understand. Now here is the poem in its entirety as it occurs in your book. All I want you to do is to take a look at the rhyme scheme. And when we see the rhyme scheme, what do? We look at the last word in each line. So as we see it here, it's forever, never, keep, sleep, breathing, reading. So we can see it's an AA, BB, CC rhyme scheme. And now when we read it with the rhyme scheme, see what happens. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us and asleep. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, when I read it like this, even I don't understand it. And I'm supposed to explain it to you. Let me ask you, having noted the rhyme scheme, to completely ignore the rhyme scheme. Yes, that's right. I'm asking you to ignore the rhyme scheme, and in my next slide, I'm going to show you how you can alternatively read it, and that reading will make it absolutely easy for you to understand it. I have broken down the poem for you into 4 stanzas. And in these 4 stanzas, I have not missed out a single word of the poem. But what I've done is to restructure it to read like a paragraph. So the 4 stanzas are actually going to be 4 paragraphs, and I'm going to read each one to you, with you, and see how easily you can understand it. Here is the first one. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. Easy to understand? Let's carry on to the second stanza and see if reading it like this makes it easier. Therefore, on every morrow are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth, in spite of despondence, of the inhuman dearth of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and overdarkened ways made for our searching. Yes, in spite of all, Some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirits. Continuing with the easy reading, let's move to stanza 3. Such the sun, the moon, trees old and young, sprouting a shady boon for simple sheep. And such are daffodils with the green world they live in, and clear rills that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season. The mid-forest brake, rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms. I request you to read this stanza or this paragraph on your own in the next 20 seconds. When you read it like a paragraph, it becomes so much easier. And now, moving on to the last stanza. And such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead, all lovely tales that we have heard or read, an endless fountain of immortal drink pouring unto us from the heavens' brink. Once again, I request you all to read it on your own. This then was the entire poem broken down into 4 paragraphs, or 4 stanzas broken down into 4 paragraphs, and making it easy for you to read, to be read as a sentence at a time. Let's take a look now in the subsequent slides into the poetic devices, the meanings, the inferences of each one of these paragraphs. Starting with the very first one, a thing of beauty is a joy forever, its loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. In this, there are only 4 points that I need you to keep in mind, and these are a bower, which is a forest full of trees, a sleep full of sweet dreams. A sleep is when you relax, and when you get sweet dreams, that sleep is a fitful sleep. Health. One of the things that worries us the most is our health. And if our health is okay, we are in a happy space. And quiet breathing. Everyone knows what meditation is. Everyone knows that while we meditate, we are asked to breathe calmly. We are asked to breathe quietly. And when we breathe in this way, we are in a calm state of mind. So a very beautiful bower of trees, a forest of trees, a lovely fitful sleep where we are dreaming of beautiful things, good health, and quiet breathing, relaxed breathing that put us in a happy place. These are the things that can make you smile. And now to move on to stanza 2, where the poet has given us a beautiful comparison of the good and the bad in life and how we need to weigh the two together. He says, therefore, on every morrow are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth, spite of despondence, of the inhuman dearth of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and overdarkened ways made for our searching. Yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirits. He says it's like the yin and yang of life, where you've got the black and the white. They're 2 sides of the same coin. He says every morning, every morrow, we are wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth. A flowery band, a ring of flowers, beautiful flowers bound together that signify nature. And every morning, life itself is binding us to nature. And this is in spite of the negativities in life. And the negativities that he has listed, despondence, the inhuman dearth of noble natures, where people are not nice to each other anymore. It's an inhuman dearth because humanity says that we need to be nice to each other. We need to care for each other. These are the noble natures: kindness, empathy, sharing and caring. And lack of these is inhuman. Gloomy days, sad days, unhealthy ways, over darkened ways, when we are feeling sad. And these have been made for us to experience. Made for us searching does not mean that we are looking for these unhappy moments, but these come, these happen. But when we are in tune with nature, when we are in tune with the beautiful bounties of nature given to us, some shape of beauty moves away the spoil from our dark spirits. Some shape of beauty can bring the smile back to our faces. Just like in the next slide you're going to see, every cloud has a silver lining. If there's a cloud behind which the sun is hidden, there will be a time when the cloud moves away and the sun is going to shine through. So in spite of all the negativity in life, all we have to do is to hang on to a thought of positivity, a moment of joy that can bring a smile to our faces, because that one moment will help us go through and experience this unhappy moment that we are feeling. Stanza 3 and stanza 4 are one of my favorite stanzas in this poem. And here he actually justifies what he says. In the previous stanza, he told us that although we may be feeling a little low, although we may be feeling a little sad, if we hang on to a thought of something beautiful, that is going to make us feel happy. That is going to make us smile again. And in stanza 3, he actually gives you examples of things that can make you smile. Let's see what they are. Such the sun, the moon, trees old and young, sprouting a shady boon for simple sheep. And such are daffodils with the green world they live in. And clear rills that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season. The mid-forest brake rich with a sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms. These are the images which I've highlighted that I need you to look at. The sun, the moon, trees old and young. So you've got majestic trees, big tall trees, and the young green trees which are sprouting. And these trees are giving a shady boon. They're giving shade to whom? To simple sheep. What a beautiful image that is. Simple, innocent sheep sitting under the shade of shady trees. Daffodils, which you can see on the slide in front of you, in the green world that they live in. The color of yellow, the color of joy, the color green of prosperity, both combining for vibrancy. Clear rills are little streams that make a cooling covert in the hot season, where the river or the stream is turning. And on a hot summer day, how cooling and soothing it is to be sitting beside this little river that is flowing. The mid-forest break, that means there's a break in the forest which is abundant with musk rose blooms, musk roses that spread their fragrance in the forest. There's a plethora of images that the poet has given here, justifying his previous statement that if you are feeling sad, there's plenty in nature to show you that you have reasons to be happy. Let's take a look at each one of these images as they occur. I've already shown you the daffodils in a yellow field sprinkled with green, or I should say a green field sprinkled with yellow flowers. Both images really pleasing to the eye. And here he talks about the trees, the innocent simple sheep, the sun, the moon, which itself is a symbol of beauty. The musk roses, they are so beautiful. And here you have a mountain stream that is going through the forest. It's looking so beautiful. Imagine yourself sitting beside this river. Imagine that those bushes and the trees and the smells of nature that you can smell are the fragrance of those roses as they are blooming for you. Thoughts that you can actually feel, that can bring a smile to every single face. And finally, to the fourth paragraph or the fourth stanza, which is the concluding one, where he says, And such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead. All lovely tales that we have heard or read, an endless fountain of immortal drink pouring unto us from heaven's brink. In the previous stanza, John Keats spoke about the wonders of nature. And here in the last stanza, he talks about the wonders of mankind, the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead. Who are the mighty dead? Glorious stories that we have either read or we have heard about people who have sacrificed themselves in doing something which has brought the larger good for mankind. And these stories, some of these stories have been handed down to us for generations. And for each generation, they hold the same value, the same importance as they did for the one before. And such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead. The mighty dead, those people who sacrificed for us. And if in the next slide you see, I've given you an image here of our soldiers in the highest battlefield in the world. And on the board over there are the Paramveer Chakra awardees of our country. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, every time students or adults walked past this board, they stood a little taller, feeling pride for their nation. And they stopped and read some of the stories of each one of these heroes. And their stories are immortal. Their stories are going to generate pride for every one of us, regardless of our age. These are the mighty dead. These are the ones who gave up their lives for our future, for the future of our generations which are still yet to come. And here before you is the poem in its entirety, but written not in stanza form, but in the form of the paragraphs. And I'm going to pause for just a few seconds and read it with you, but this time silently. So let's spend a few seconds reading this poem as it has been written on the screen for you. Then we will move into the stanzas having the poetic devices that is so important for you all to know. So let's read it. I'm sure you must have had a quick read of the poem and you now have a clear idea of what the poet is talking about. He's simply saying that something of beauty, if you hang on to that thought, it can take you through the toughest of times. Now let's move into the poem to identify the poetic devices in every single stanza. In stanza 1, where he says, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing." The very first line itself is a metaphor. When he's saying that a thing of beauty is going to be a joy forever, two distinct things are being compared with each other to express to you how something beautiful can be joyful as well. It is also an example of hyperbole where you are exaggerating, where he says it will be a joy forever, for eternity. In the second line, we have an example of litotes where there are two negatives that have been used in line 2 and 3, where he says it will never pass into nothingness. So the use of never and nothingness, where you are understating the fact that something of beauty is going to last forever by using two negatives, is called litotes. The entire poem has examples of enjambment. Enjambment is when the line does not conclude, or the sentence does not conclude, or the thought does not conclude in that same line, but moves on into the next line. So here you've got the metaphor, the hyperbole, litotes, and you've got enjambment. And enjambment examples you will be seeing in the subsequent stanzas as well. Stanza 2 is rife with poetic devices where you've got inversion or anastrophe, visual imagery. Let's take a look at each one as it occurs. Therefore on every morrow are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth, spite of despondence, of the inhuman dearth of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and overdarkened ways made for our searching. Yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirits. Here in the very first line we've got inversion or anastrophe when the normal order of words is reversed. If you see, it says, therefore on every morrow are we wreathing. Normally we would have said we are wreathing. Visual imagery where you've got the flowery band. You can actually imagine it. A band full of flowers that is been bound together and which is associating us with the beauties of nature. Alliteration where you've got the same sound being used or repeated. Here it is the sound of B. Band to bind. B. Band to bind. As we move on into the third, fourth and fifth lines, we see a repetition of the word or a phrase of the. This is called anaphora. Again, an example of alliteration where the poet speaks about noble natures, where both words are beginning with the letter N. And then moving on, we have a transferred epithet. A transferred epithet is when the quality of one thing is transferred onto something else. Here you've got gloomy days, days that are gloomy, unhealthy ways, ways that are unhealthy. Both gloomy and unhealthy are normally not applied to days and ways. They are very human feelings or emotions or situations that have now been transferred onto these. Alliteration as we move on in some shape where both words are starting with the letter S, and personification. Some shape of beauty moves away the pall. It's a human being that moves something away, but it's a very human quality that has been given to something of beauty that can move away the pall. And contrast where you've got beauty, dark spirits, pall, where something is very beautiful that can remove the darkness, something beautiful that sheds light as compared to our dark spirits. Once again, in the third stanza, you've got it replete with poetic devices, where it starts with visual imagery and it ends with visual imagery. Right in the beginning, you've got the images of the sun and the moon, and it concludes with the image of the fair musk rose blooms, beautiful roses blooming in the forest. Let's take a look at line 2, where you've got antithesis. Antithesis, boys and girls, is very simple to understand. Anti means against, thesis means something which is written. So some two contrasting ideas which are placed together. Here it is old and young. Two contrasting ideas placed together are antithesis. You've got an example of alliteration where the trees, whether they are old or young, are sprouting a shady boon. Sprouting a shady boon. Sprout and shade starting with the letter S. And it's a boon, it's a blessing from God above. For simple sheep, again, simple, docile, innocent sheep. Simple sheep, both starting with the letter S. And as he moves on to talk about the beautiful yellow daffodils in the green world that they live in, and he talks about the river where it makes a cooling covert as it is turning. It cools the banks. There are trees, there's shade, and there's this beautiful river, and the cooling covert is again an example of alliteration. The last two lines, they actually tingle the senses. You can smell and imagine what the poet has described when he says, in a hot season, this river is making a cooling bend, and the environment is full of the fragrance of the beautiful musk roses that are in full bloom over there. Sensory imagery is what you see over here, because you can literally visualize it and smell it. And finally, the concluding paragraph or stanza. And such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead. The mighty dead is a metaphor that stands for the brave, that stands for those who give up their lives. It's the grandeur of the dooms. Doomsday is the day when we all are going to experience one day when our lives are going to come to an end. If we have come to existence on earth, we are going to end our tenure on earth. And whenever we have a great person passing on, we always say that he has gone into God's arms. He will be taken care of by God in heaven. And we imagine the grandeur of heaven. On doomsday, the mighty dead or the brave or those who've sacrificed for others will go to heaven. And these are all lovely tales that we have either heard or read. We may not have experienced the troubles, the sacrifices, the struggle that these people have experienced, but we have heard about them. Across the world, every single nation has these heroes and heroines whom they can idealize, whom they can hold as role models because they have contributed to the growth of the nation. And their stories, we have either heard about them or we have read them. And these stories are an endless fountain of immortal drink. An endless fountain, immortal drink, again examples of hyperbole, which is when you are exaggerating. But what he says is, over the generations we have heard these stories. Over the generations we have read these stories time and time again. And each time they make us feel pride. They make us feel awe as to how these people could do what they had done. And their stories are an endless fountain of immortal drink. Their escapades in life, their sacrifices in life are immortal. They're never going to pass. They're never going to fade. They're never going to die. So they are immortal. And these stories are what can inspire us to be happy, to be moving forward. And these blessings come to us from heaven's brink, not just because they are a blessing from God, but because he says that the mighty dead have gone on to a higher world. And we always say that they've gone in the arms of God, and it is from heaven that their stories are still continuing and still being passed on to us, and we should listen to them and find joy, happiness, motivation in these stories. Once again, just to remind you, on your screen is the poem as it has been given in your books, exactly as it is written in your textbooks. And here is the same poem written, broken down into paragraphs to make it easy for you to understand. I hope that you have found the poem easy to understand, and I hope now that you will not have any problem at all in tackling the questions that are put to you in the examination. If you are just listening to this explanation or watching this video for the joy of understanding the poem, I sincerely hope that you have understood it, and you will remember the thought in this poem that a thing of beauty is indeed a joy forever. It is an endless fountain that has been given to us from heaven. Thank you ever so much for being with me in this video. Please continue to subscribe to the channel and give me your suggestions so that I can have more videos put up for you. Thank you.